just to run you through the plan for this evening, we're going to do an hour and a quarter maybe, first up with the boys for the live stream. And if you're watching, very warm welcome on the live stream if you're watching via racingpost.com or soccerbase.com. So we'll do that for an hour or so, and then we'll open it up to questions on the floor here for 15, 20 minutes, depending how good the questions are. Hopefully they'll be excellent, but it's your chance to pick these guys' brains ahead of the new season. Hopefully they'll uncover some gems for you. So without further ado, let's welcome tonight's team. And first up, let's introduce the Racing Post boys. And just to echo what Bruce said, it's just magnificent, this. I'm sure you've all read it. It's done all my preparation for Super Sunday and Monday Night Football right there. So I thank Bruce and all his team, and a man who is key to that, the football editor himself. Please welcome Mark Langdon. You on the outside, please. And another man integral to the big kickoff. And listen, one thing, if you listen to one thing tonight, this man on League Two is absolute mustard. Certainly been for the last 2 seasons. James Milton. Next up, a Premier League star who's played for City, Newcastle, most famously Liverpool, other sides as well. Played for Germany with great distinction, as you know. Ladies and gentlemen, Didi Hamann. Complimenting him on his hairstyle compared to the picture in the Racing Post. And finally, a man who needs no introduction. The top manager looking on, though, this season. Great to get his views. Big welcome for Harry Redknapp. Go on then, Harry. What's it like looking on? Is it difficult? Are you happy to be looking on, or would you love to be in the thick of it still?
I'd like to be in the thick of it, really, Ed. It's the first, 30-odd years not doing a pre-season. Always been involved pre-season. Very different, but been very relaxed. Had a great day today. Went out and played golf with 2 of my favourite sportsmen, Tony McCoy and Richard Hughes. Me and Kevin Bond took them on. They took a nice few quid off us. Absolutely battered us. Don't play golf with Richard Hughes off a 7 handicap. He is such a good player. And they killed us, yeah.
Let's talk football. Let's not mess about. Let's start with you, Harry. Who's going to win the Premier League?
I think it's the tightest league for a long time this year. You look at the league, and I genuinely think there's 4 teams that have all got decent chances. And I think Arsenal, with the signing of Czech, if they can go and make another 1, possibly 2 signings, I think they still need another striker. I think they, Walcott through the middle, short term he can do it, and for spells. But I think they're short still of another front man, and maybe another good midfield player. And I think I personally think 7-2, 4-1 Arsenal. I think is the value for me.
Do you think Arsene Wenger will do that?
I don't know. He always seems to dig his heels in, doesn't he? Maybe Sunday's result with Chelsea might have been the worst thing he could do, because he probably thinks we're okay now. We were beating Chelsea. We're looking okay. But I think they do. If they can go and get 1 or 2 in, if Wilshere stays fit, Chamberlain, showed on Sunday with the goal he took that what he can do. I think they're genuine contenders. I think Man United will be closer. I'm against Man City personally this year. I can't see them. I think I thought they maybe needed 4 or 5 players, like from what I saw of them last year. And really, they've took Sterling, but I can't see them being. I wouldn't want to put my money on them this year, Man City.
You haven't read Mark Langdon, then who's strong on them. We'll come to you in a second, Mark, on City to make the case. Diddy, let's go to you though. Arsenal, City, Chelsea. Where are you siding?
Well, yeah, I tipped Arsenal today. I see it similar as Harry does. They won the FA Cup the last 2 years. I think they showed a bit more grit and determination. I think the arrival of Coquelin made a big difference, because I think the goalkeeper and the central midfield role, defensive role in front of the back 4 has been their Achilles heel for a number of years. They never replaced Alex Song, and I think with Arsenal they always scored goals, but they couldn't keep a clean sheet. If you can't keep clean sheets, you won't win the league. I think in Peter Cech they've got a keeper now who is capable of, we know what he's capable of. I don't think he's the same keeper as he was 5 years ago, but I think he's a lot better than what they had last season. If Coquelin plays the same way he did last year when he arrived on the scene, If Koscielny stays fit, there's a doubt with his Achilles problems. He missed a lot of games last season. Yes, they could probably do with another centre forward, but I think they've got a core there. They've got a squad of players which is more than capable of challenging. Wouldn't read too much into the game on Sunday because I think it meant a lot more to Arsenal than to Chelsea. But I think Arsenal will be challengers, and that's why I've gone for them this year.
Do we make too much of a mental barrier? People talk about a mental barrier with Arsenal in getting over, firstly, big games, winning big football matches, and then the next step, winning titles. Is that a big factor?
Well, it is a big factor because end of the day, it's about winning things, and unless you do win, you don't know how you react in a situation like this. I think a big step forward was last season's game against Manchester City, where they defended well, they won the game, I think, 2-0 at the Etihad. So they showed they're capable of doing this and playing a different way, because I love watching Arsenal. If I can choose one team out of the Premier League to watch, it would be them, because they are the best to watch. But it's very hard to play beautiful football and be successful. So sometimes you have to mix it up. And I wouldn't read too much into that mental barrier not having won the league with that set of players. But in the big games, because end of the day comes down to keeping clean sheets. You can't always go 2 and 3 goals. Even as an Arsenal, you've got to be able to keep clean sheets. And with the defence they've got, if they stay fit, the 2 centre-backs, you can make a case for Koscielny, Mertesacker maybe being the best partnership over the last 3 or 4 years, with Terry and probably Cahill. And if you keep clean sheets with a keeper they've got now, you've got a chance. And I think it was a great signing, getting Czech. And this is why I think they've got a steal. Wenger's got his best chance for years, and I think the players believe as well now they can win it, what they said after Sunday. And I really give him a fighting chance this season.
Now, I opened this up this morning, Mark, with great excitement as always at 8 o'clock this morning. I actually thought you were going to tip Arsenal. I was surprised that you went for Manchester City. Why?
Well, first of all, I think with Arsenal, it's just the fact that they haven't finished in the top 2 in the last 10 years, and that was a negative for me. I always think you should look at the top of the market first. So I went to Chelsea, and I just felt there were too many question marks about them in terms of, last season I felt everything went right for them. Terry played every single minute of the Premier League. So did Ivanovic. They got into a position late on in the season when they didn't have to go chasing games in those big matches. We saw them play nobody up front at Arsenal, against Manchester United, very defensive, against City at home, very defensive again, because they had that lead. And I just wondered with City, as far as Chelsea go, if they need to go chasing matches in the second half of the season, I'm not so sure their defence will be quite as strong, because they defended quite deep. So I was looking to take Chelsea on. Arsenal, I do respect and what Harry and Diddy have said, but course and distance form, last 10 years suggests that they haven't been good enough over 38 matches. So that's why I discounted them. And then I looked at City, and everybody told me that Chelsea blew them away in the first half of the season. So I looked back at the results. And on New Year's Day, they were level pegging with Chelsea. Then Yaya Toure went to the Africa Cup of Nations. By the time he went back, their season was over. They picked up 3 points in 4 matches. Aguero wasn't fully fit at that time. I think Sterling, Silva, Yaya Toure and Aguero is a fantastic front 4. And usually the team who scores the most goals in the Premier League wins it. Has done in 8 of the last 10 years. I think City will score the most goals. And if they do, I think they're a big price.
You're not worried, and Diddy, this is for you as well, you're not worried that spine you talk about are another year older? Is there not uncertainty with City with the managerial situation? Could this not be, I'm not sure transitional period is the word, because all the talk is there might be a different manager in charge next season?
I'm more concerned over the managerial situation because Pellegrini looks like he's somebody that's just waiting until Guardiola leaves Bayern Munich before Guardiola takes over at City. So that is a concern. In terms of the age, when I looked at the squad, I didn't think there were that many old players in it. Yaya Toure would be one of those that possibly could be a season too far, but the likes of Silva and Aguero are perfect ages. Company as well, that's the basis of the spine. I think Delph is a good signing as well. Somebody that, not necessarily for the Champions League, I don't think he's necessarily good enough, for that level, but I think Premier League, those sort of weekly, games where they threw away silly points against the likes of Burnley, I think with Delph in there, I think that they'll improve on that.
Yeah, well, I think they've got too many old players. They played a game last year when they got beat at Crystal Palace. They had 2 players under the age of 30 Kompany and Aguero. I think Kompany in the meantime is 30 now. Yes, I agree. Delph can be a good or will be a good signing. I think the biggest improvement will be Sterling, because Nasri and Navas flatter to deceive at the best of times. And I think he'll be a great signing for them if he hits the ground running, because all the responsibility was on Silva and Aguero in recent years. But Aguero had his injury problems as well. He missed a lot of games over the last 2 seasons. And there's just too many question marks. If the manager is not safe in his position, sometimes it can be a bit of an excuse for the players, because as it looks now, he won't be there the season after. We don't even know if he's going again off to a bad start, whether he will last the season.
Is Yaya still a liability?
Well, it depends how you use him. He's a very talented player, but we were talking before, you've got to use him in a free role where he can do what he wants. You can't play against the best teams and play in a midfield 2 with him and somebody else, because he doesn't want to defend. He's an offensive midfielder who wants to go forward, who can score goals. He's powerful, he's unstoppable. When he's in full flow, you've got to give him the free role off Aguero. I think when you play at home against a smaller side, you might get away with it, playing him in centre midfield. But I think in the big games against the better teams, you've got to play him further forward, where he's got no responsibility going backwards. And the other thing is, yes, every team had a long pre-season. Stuttgart stayed up by the skin of the teeth last season. Man City goes there last Saturday. They're 4-0 down at halftime. Now, I don't care what you say. Would it happen to a Chelsea? Would it happen to a Barcelona, to a Real Madrid, to a whoever? I don't see it. And if you get beat by a team 4-0 in the first half, regardless where you are in terms of preparation, I don't think things are right. And this is, I've got major question marks. I would even lay them to finish in the top 4, because I think if Liverpool...
Top 4?
I think if Liverpool beat one team this year, I think they'll catch Manchester City, because I think they could run into all sorts of trouble this year.
I would agree with that. I agree with Diddy. I think that, for me, I think Man City are the most vulnerable team in the top 4. That would be my opinion, City. You know, and Liverpool are the one team that can get into the top 4 outside the big 4. There's nobody else this year.
Okay, we'll come to Liverpool in a minute. James, be the voice of reason here. Why are these guys and anybody and everybody opposing Chelsea? Is that madness?
I'm not sure it's madness, but I think at the prices, Chelsea are still the team to beat. I mean, Arsenal earlier in the summer was 6-1 for the title, and if you got a bit of that, then you're on a decent bet. And they're obviously in great shape. At the start of the season, I think Lauren Koscielny, I should declare an interest. I am an Arsenal fan. I think Lauren Koscielny's arguably the best centre-back in the league. And, you know, the last few seasons, they've brought in these guys who are used to winning, Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, and obviously Petr Cech as well. I just feel that Chelsea, in terms of consistency, will still have the edge. I mean, Mark mentioned that you know, it was neck and neck until New Year's Day. But, you know, Chelsea lost 3 league games all season. One of those was a dead rubber against West Brom at the end of the season. And, you know, I take Mark's point that we don't know whether Chelsea will have to start kind of chasing games and being more open. But that's because they so rarely get beaten. And, you know, Mourinho does manage these seasons so well. So, yeah, I think Chelsea kind of, you know, almost at 2-1 are still a decent bet.
Are you surprised he hasn't done more Mourinho this summer? I mean, because they always say, and you look at Man United sides, you talk about how difficult it is to retain the Premier League starters. They were always looking to improve and move on, get better and better. When you're the best, you need to get even better. Are you surprised he hasn't done more, Jose?
It is interesting because, you know, we think of Chelsea and we think of them being the super rich club who do always have the money available. But at the same time, he clearly loves that kind of stability and that consistency. You know, you saw how reluctant he was to rotate players, which they got away with just about. And obviously, you know, an early injury to Eden Hazard makes things very, very different. But you know, he just loves that small core of players. And they seem to respond well to that kind of workload.
Isn't Jose the key to all this, Harry?
Yeah, I suppose
at the end of the day, he's a serial winner.
Yeah, but the big problem for Chelsea, if you look at their team, you know, where do you improve it? You know, the right back, the left back were outstanding. John Terry, Cahill is looking to bring Stones in for some cover. The keeper's different class, Mata. You know, it's just that for me, the biggest question mark is, has Costa got a hamstring problem that seems to be reoccurring a little bit? If he's missing, have they got enough somebody up front who's going to play up there and do the business. Because on Sunday, you know, Remy, he ran offside. You know, is he gonna carry you through a season if he had to play in long spells? You know, he can score a goal, good finisher. Is he, you know, Falcao last year was such a disappointment, really, at Man United. Is he capable? Has he gone a bit? I wouldn't be sure. I didn't see enough of him last year. If they're short, if them two, you know, if they do get an injury to Diego Costa, that could be a real problem for them.
Why are you keen to take on Chelsea, Dilly?
Well, I think the reason Mourinho came back to Chelsea and to London was to win the Champions League, because that's the trophy he didn't win with a club he loved so much. They won the league last year. They were by far the best side. They are the best in grinding results out, keeping clean sheets and winning games 1-0. But I think their focus will be a little bit more on the Champions League, because I think this is the trophy. They won everything else, or he won everything else with Chelsea. This is a trophy he wants to win now. I think that doesn't mean he's going to write the league off and gives it to somebody else. But with a small squad, I think if there is an important Champions League game, I think these players will play in the Champions League rather than in the league. And I think they are worthy favourites. I think they are, favourites on merit, because they have been the best team last year, and there's no reason to believe any other team is better. But I just think with a bit of momentum at the odds, they will be too short for me. Costa is of course, a big issue or problem, because if he doesn't play more than 20-25 games, I agree. I don't think they've got enough going forward to score them goals. And they've got a pretty small squad compared. I think Mark makes a point in the Racing Post in the pullout today. Compared to other teams, they didn't really have an awful lot of injuries last year, so they didn't need to rotate. But I think it'll be a different story, and I think the other teams have caught up with them. And this is, as I said, they are worthy favourites, but at the prices, I would rather take Arsenal over Chelsea. And
you also said at the prices you'd be keen to lay Manchester City for the top four, which raises an eyebrow. Liverpool, your old team, are they the team to take advantage? Would you be confident they could finish in that top four?
Well, I think they've done very well in the transfer window. I think if you told me the players they do bring, I think everybody was a bit disillusioned after them last two games, getting beat 9-2 on aggregate against Palace at home and away to Stoke. I think everybody thought, what's going to happen next? There was talk about the manager leaving. They decided to stick with the manager. The coaching staff got replaced, and they brought players in now who are proven in the Premier League. I like Klein. I think Klein is probably the best right back in the league. Milner is a very good signing. I think Firmino will do well. He's a tough boy. He's been in Germany. I don't think he'll be frightened by the physical challenge of the Premier League. And I think in Benteke they've got a goal scorer now, because if you look back now, they finished last season, I think, 6th, probably 8 or 10 points behind 4th place. And they played the whole season without a centre forward. Sturridge was out all season. We don't know if he comes back or when he comes back. Not even sure whether he's still in the football club, because he's been in America for the last 6 months watching the boxing. They've got so much quality behind him. When you've got a goal scorer like Benteke with the likes of Lallana, who I expect a lot more, he missed pre-season last year. So I think it was very harsh on a lot of new players last season, coming in after nearly winning the league, losing Suarez, losing Sturridge for the whole season. You can't expect these guys to come in and carry all the responsibility for their football club. So I expect a lot more of Markovic, Lallana. I think they'll be better for it now in the second year, Liverpool. So I think they've got a chance. I think the manager is a poor favourite in the sack race, because they kept him now, and I can't see him leaving for the next 6-7 months, regardless what happens. So there's a bit of stability in the club, and I think they stand a far better chance than last year. Is it enough to finish in the top four? I'm not too sure. They're 11-4. At the prices, they're probably a bit of value.
And you've talked about Liverpool going forward, fine. Lots of options, Benteke up top, the signings they've got. Klein, fine. Are you not worried about two things with Liverpool? One, in central midfield, which I think you touch on in here. Could they be overpowered in there? And power is obviously a big factor these days. And secondly, surely they've still got all those problems they had last season at centre-half.
Well, I think in Skrtel they've got one of the best centre-halves in the league, so I've not got a problem with him. I probably even would have made him captain. I wouldn't change the keeper for anybody bar Courtois or De Gea. I think since he come back in the team, I think he's been outstanding in the last 4 or 5 months. I think he showed the character he's got, so I've not got an issue with him. In Gomez, they've got a left back who probably starts the season, who looks very promising, big, powerful boy from Charlton. The left centre-half position is an issue because Sakho has got a mistake in him and Lovren didn't perform last year, so they need to find a partner for Skirtle. My biggest worry is centre midfield. If you look at Allen, who might be injured, so if you look at Lucas, Henderson, Milner, do you fancy them three against Coughlin, Ramsey, Wilshere or Özil, whoever plays there? Do you fancy them against Ramirez and Matic and one other? If you look at United with Schneiderlin, Schweinsteiger, Herrera, you know, I just wonder whether that central or that holding midfield position is strong enough. That's my biggest worry. But they've got to do it. I think Milner will help them a lot because he's got a lot of experience. I think he's got a big role to play. And then you just have to, you know, we may see a similar story than 2 years ago because if you remember, they scored over 100 goals. I think they conceded 60. You've got to score one more than the opposition. And I think we could see a lot of games with Liverpool this season featuring 5, 6, 7 or 8 goals because I think it could be a shootout at times because if you defensively not the best, sometimes attack is the best defence.
Would you see him playing free at the back again, Tilly, with the players he's got?
He may do. I think it was more by default last year. And obviously one player we didn't mention was Emre Can, who did ever so well. But again, he's got to prove he can replicate what he did last year in central midfield and where he played at the back. Yes, I can see it. But I think, well, they will play 4 at the back, I would think, away to Stoke. Hopefully they get off to a good start. But at that left centre-back position, Sakho and Lovren's got to make it their own now. It's down to them. One cost 20 odd million, one cost 18, I think. And what they did last year was just simply not good enough. And hopefully one of them gets off to a good start and does it as it looks at the moment. Lovren is favourite to play on Saturday. And it'll be a big test for him.
I do see him, you know, as you said there, I see him being a little bit short in midfield of being strong enough. Exactly what you said. Are they strong enough to cope with him, with the Arsenal midfield, with the Chelsea midfield? I'm not sure. Even the back four, you know, would he play the young kid from Charlton at left back?
It looks that way.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be a big. You know, he's a young and he's a talent for sure. He's strong. He's quick. But it's a big it's a big ask. His first year in the Premier League to play in a team that's going to. But 11-4, they're the only team outside the top 4 that I think can get into the top. You know, at the big 4 as we look at them at the moment, that could break into the
Spurs,
top 4.
no?
I couldn't see Spurs this year. No, I really can't. They've done nothing. They've brought no one in. They've not improved really. They're relying on Harry Kane basically. If Harry doesn't score, Soldado looks like he's going to go. I mean. You know, they've got 4 or 5 good right backs. They overload. They've got a couple of good young left backs. You know, they keep buying central defenders, but they've got Harry Kane. Who's going to score? Who's going to
Might the chairman get involved later in the month?
Well, I think he might do. He needs to really. You know, but they're short as well in midfield. I mean, you know, good young players. Mason, you know, Bentaleb. They did well last year, but they're again not strong enough to go and. To push you into a top 4, I don't think this year. I like the manager. I think he did a fantastic job at Southampton, and I think given the tools, he could do a great job at Tottenham. But I don't think he's got the tools at the moment to work with.
Right, Mark, where do you stand on those two? Spurs, Liverpool, top 4?
Well, I think that they're absolutely nailed on for the positions they're in the betting 5 and 6, really. Liverpool, I still feel a short of Manchester United. Did mention that the sort of areas that United strengthened in with Schweinsteiger, even if he is slightly past his best, to have him, Schneiderlin and Carrick in that midfield area really does improve them. And I think Memphis, as the season goes on, will be one of the Premier League stars, if you like. I'm not quite sure he's the next Cristiano Ronaldo just yet, but the France Football Magazine did the best players in the world, best young players, and Memphis was number 1. And I think that maybe he's flying in under the radar a little bit because the signing was done so early. But I think he could really take the Premier League by storm. So Liverpool, I've got them finishing 5th. Agree with everything sort of Harry said about Tottenham. A lot's been said about some of these younger players, Dele Alli from MK Dons and Pritchard, who did so well on loan at Brentford last season, as potentially breaking in. But you've only got Harry Kane up front at the moment, and one of the bets knocking around is for Rooney 5-6 to outscore Kane. And I think that's one of the best bets of the Premier League season.
We'll come back to more best bets later. James, let's finish this section with Man United, because it seems to me they're the hardest to predict of the lot. Personally, it wouldn't surprise me if they challenged for the league or bombed. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I think it is fascinating to see what United are doing. I mean, one thing I noticed about them last season, they really, didn't have European football to worry about. They played 5 cup ties. 4 of those were against League One and League Two teams, and yet still kind of couldn't quite keep up the pace in the Premier League. So it'll be very interesting to see how they cope now back in Europe. Obviously, they've spent an awful lot of money, and like Mark says, I think Memphis will be a hit for them. He's pacey, he's direct, he's got a great goal record in Holland, which doesn't always transfer to the Premier League, but I think in this case it certainly will. He's got a real touch of class about him. Still question marks over the defence, I think, though. They chopped and changed so much last season, and it looks like this season with the summer spending, they're basically banking on just shoring up the midfield so much that maybe they can get away with a slightly dodgy defence. But no, I have them in for 4th.
For 4th for you, Harry, Man United. Would it surprise you if Louis van Gaal went bang and got it? He talked about match winners the other day, A-listers, you like, players with X factor. You expect him to do that before the end of the month?
Wouldn't surprise if he went and made another big signing for sure. I could see Man United finishing above Man City this year. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. And as you say, they could be bang there this year. Diddy would know. The midfield players. They've improved in there. And they're looking much stronger. And Carrick at last has got some help in there, and that could be a key area for him. Schweinsteiger, is he still capable? Diddy, is he still?
Well, I think the fact that he comes here shows that he wanted another challenge, and I think he wants to prove Pep and Bayern Munich wrong to let him go and improve a point. So I think shows a lot. I like Man United. I wouldn't be surprised if they do challenge for the league.
No, nor do
I probably have Arsenal and Man United finish 1 and 2 because I like their signings. Schneiderlin, I think they've got a terrific player.
Yeah.
If Schweinsteiger gets to anywhere near his best, I think he'll be a terrific addition. And then going forward with Memphis Depay, Rooney up top, I still think they need another centre forward. I don't think you can rely on Rooney. I think they still need one more centre forward to go in there. But Van Gaal says we make that signing, whether it's Ibrahimovic or somebody else, remains to be seen. But I think Man United will be banged up because he said this guy is a winner. He won everywhere he's been. He said if I don't win the league in the next 2 years, I deserve the sack. And that's what we want to hear. He's got confidence in himself, in his team, and I think United will be banged there.
Let's touch on some other markets. Let's have a look at the Premier League relegation. Watford are the 1 odds on shot at 4 to 5. Norwich 5 to 4. Who's going down, James?
Actually, I'm looking further down the betting. I think all 3 promoted sides have got a great chance of staying up. I mean, it really was a vintage championship season, and they all came out having scored bundles of goals. Watford and Bournemouth particularly have showed plenty of ambition in the transfer market. And I'd be far more keen to get with the likes of Sunderland at 9 to 4, Leicester 7 to 2 than any of the new boys.
You agree with that, Sunderland? I saw you had Sunderland rock bottom, Mark.
Yeah, I got a few tweets off some Sunderland fans this morning, particularly because I had Newcastle doing quite a bit better than them. But yeah, I mean, I think Sunderland, a team the last 5 or 6 years, have been hanging around the bottom 4 or 5. And if you continually sort of get under 40 points, eventually you're going to go. I think that they're a team that's relied on having 3 worst sides in the Premier League. And, it's worked for them for a while. But I'm looking at the teams that come up. I think Bournemouth will be absolutely fine. Real quality in the likes of Ritchie and Pugh, and they've just signed Lee Tomlin from Middlesbrough, a really nice technical footballer. I think Wilson will score goals, and I think for Watford, Deeney will score goals as well. Norwich, I'm a little bit less confident about, I have to be said, but I think Sunderland at the moment, they're not good enough at the back, and I don't think they've got enough goals in the team as it currently stands. Now, of course, there's still a month to go, so that they could readdress, and try to strengthen those areas. But for now, they would be the one, Sunderland. And Leicester, I think getting rid of Pearson and replacing him with Ranieri is a massive risk. It was Mourinho who called Ranieri a loser after his stint at Chelsea, and that's kind of stuck with him, really. And I just think that Pearson had so much respect for the players, even when the media and some of the fans turned against him. The dressing room never did, and eventually they stayed up. And I just wonder whether Ranieri commands the same kind of respect, and they've lost Cambiasso as well.
Bournemouth, Harry. What a story they are being.
Fantastic.
There.
I mean,
Can they stay up?
Yeah, I'm sure I think they will stay up. You know,
Why?
Because I think the way I watched them last year, some of the football they played I thought they were one of the best teams to come out of the Championship in a long time. They're full of energy, full of bright young players.
Surely, Harry, it's a totally different ballgame.
It is, but you know, there's teams have come up before, and you thought, well, how are they going to? But this is a good team with a good fantastic young manager. They've got a great spirit. You know, they're together, and the players he's brought into the squad now. He's made 2 signings today. You know, he took the Tomlinson from Middlesbrough, and he took the other lad from St Etienne. He got, I think he got 16 goals last year. The little winger, Max Gradle. He's got pace. The midfield, they're lively. They get forward. They score. They've got 2 fantastic attacking fullbacks. I just think they're a very, very good team. I'd be very surprised if they went down.
Which of the bigger guns, if you like, do you think might be in trouble?
I think there's a few. I'm with Sunderland. I can't, you know, Sunderland have made a few signings. I'm not sure about the players they've signed, how good they are. And every year they've been a bang average team that just keep hanging in there somehow. And I think this could be the year that they might just fall through the trap door. I think Leicester have got it all on. You know, I think their spirit was the key last year. And, you know, with Nigel Pearson going, it's going to be a tough year for them. So Villa. You know, Tim's got it all on. He's got a tough job on his hands there, Tim. He's lost key players. You know, Benteke, Delph, Vlar. I mean, they were the backbone of his team. He's got to replace them, and he's got to replace them quickly. They go to Bournemouth Saturday. I could see Bournemouth beating Villa Saturday, first game of the season.
Who's going down, Diddy?
Well, I agree. I think all 3 promoted sides got a fighting chance to stay up. I think they're better than the ones who came up the season before. Leicester, I don't know where that Ranieri comes from. He's been around for the last God knows how many years. I don't think he's done much. He comes out of doldrums every now and then. He's been at Greece. His record in Greece was worse than mine in Stockport.
That is bad.
Yeah. And I think he even managed to get beat by the Faroes, did he, once or twice? So, I don't know where that comes from. It must be some agent must have pitched him in there and said, listen, this is your man. And the chairman said, you know, with the time difference in talent, he must have heard somebody else. He probably thought he signed somebody else. I just don't get it. And as Harry just said, they had a great team spirit. They came from nowhere to win 6-7 games in the last 10 or 11, stayed up. I think the manager had to leave the club for not footballing reasons, for what happened in them unfortunate incidents after the season finished. And, you know, they got somebody there, and you know, I think they've got it all on. I think at the price they've got to have is a must bet, 7-2, because I think they've got it all on. If two out of the 3 promoted sides stay up, which I think they've got every chance, then Leicester will be the first ones to look at Sunderland. Everybody talked about them, Leicester will be my tip purely on the basis to bring somebody in, and for Cambiasso to decide not to do another year after having such a good season. Last year, I think, tells its own story.
I think that's because he had a similar opinion of the manager as you clearly have. I think it's probably played a part.
And I think he worked with him at Inter before, so maybe I've got a point.
Top goal scorer. Mark, you go first. Is there a bit of value this with the top injury doubts about a few of them?
Yeah, I mean, for one, Costa's second favourite. He doesn't take penalties, and he's got the dodgy hamstring. So he's one I would definitely put a line for, even though he scored 20 goals last season in 26 appearances. I don't think you can trust him enough to play enough games. I think if Aguero stays fit, then he's definitely the one to beat and a very worthy favourite. He won by 5 last season, and he was pulling away really, but by the end of the campaign, a couple I like the look of at bigger prices. Alexis would be one. He was somebody that had a brilliant start at Arsenal, and I think he's only going to get better in the second season. And then there's a couple at bigger prices. One you'll like the look of here, Ed, and that's Pella. Now, he scored 12 goals last season.
He likes the look of himself as well.
He does, yeah. The hunky Italian hitman. He scored 12 times last season, and I think it should have been nearer 20, the amount of chances that Southampton created for him. He hit the woodwork the most times in a Premier League season ever. 6 or 7 different outlets disputed that, but I think he was a little bit unlucky to finish with 12. There's a lot of good players at Southampton that will create chances for him, and somebody else, I mentioned him a little bit earlier, but I think Deeney, he's been around the 20-goal mark in the last 3 Championship campaigns, and I think sometimes people overrate the Premier League. I don't think the step up is necessarily as big as Charlie Austin, for instance, managed it comfortably last season, and I think Deeney's got enough about him to sort of be this season's Charlie Austin.
James, pick one out, top goal scorer.
Yeah, I think Aguero's a really solid favourite, but as Mark's mentioned, the step up in class may not be as massive as people think. And Callum Wilson at Bournemouth is another who could go really well and make the frame at, I think he's around 80-1. He scored 20 league goals last season, and he's going to get some fantastic service from the likes of Matt Ritchie. Very talented.
Where does he rate Callum Wilson? 'Cause I think he's going to be talked about a lot in the next few weeks. When you look at others who've come up, Danny Ings most recently, Charlie Austin, who Harry knows all about. Do you have him in that sort of category?
I think he's still only 23, and he has come through the divisions quite quickly. So there's, there is a lot of scope for improvement from him. But the two you mentioned, Ings and Austin, proved last season that even in teams who are struggling, these players can score goals, and I think Wilson will get some really good service at Bournemouth.
That's interesting. Just on the subject of Charlie Austin, where do you think he should be plying his trade this season? Where would you like to see him go?
He needs to play in the Premier League. To play in the Championship now would be. Suddenly got into the England squad, but it's maybe a West Ham.
Is he good enough to play for a top 6 club, or is a West Ham you mentioned there, or a Newcastle a better fit for him?
I think he's a better fit for him. Yeah, I would see a West Ham or a Newcastle would be a good fit for him. And he'll get his goals. He'll go and get his 16, 17 goals again. Good lad, great attitude. I couldn't. He's not for Man United, Man City, Chelsea. He's not Arsenal. But certainly, maybe even the Tottenham could go for him,
Loves the Racing Post as well, doesn't he? Loves his racing.
Big racing man. I think he's got a racing club, hasn't he, now? I did say to him, Charlie, I'll give you one bit of advice. Buy houses, not fucking horses.
Apologies for the language on the streaming. Apologies. Flaming horses.
He kept buying horses. I said, no, go and buy some houses. It's a better investment. But
top goal scorer, Harry.
Aguero, I can't see. You got to fancy. I wish. Did he say, I wish I'd met you 20 years ago? I could have done with that advice. I might not have been a better player, he said, if you'd have managed me, but I'd have been richer. Fancy asking me giving people advice not to buy horses. I mean, it's crazy, really. But
Aguero, Harry.
Aguero. Yeah, I'd have to fancy. You'd have to fancy Aguero. It's, no disrespect to the other lads. They'll score their goals. Wilson will score goals at Bournemouth, but they're not gonna be, if you're on top and you're making chances and like Man United years ago, or Liverpool, when you go there, the strikers are getting hatfuls of chances because they're dominating you. These players are not going to get the amount of chances, whereas Aguero will get chances, and when he gets them, he's a fantastic finisher. And I suppose Costa, really, again, if he stays fit long enough this year, he'll get his goals at Chelsea. I can only see the top 2.
Did he a bet to be had in the market?
Well, I like, as in the pull-out today, I like Rooney. Rooney scored, 12 goals last year, played a lot of games in midfield. He will take penalties this coming season. And in the last 8-9 years, if you got 19-20 goals, you guaranteed a place. So it's a quarter first for, I think at 14 or 15-1. I think Rooney is a cracking bet. The other one I gave is Patrick Bamford, who's got goals wherever he is. Goal scorers, we've seen it with Charlie Austin. If you are a goal scorer, it doesn't matter which league you play in. And I think with a quality Palace, if they hang on to the players behind them, with Bolasie, with Zaha, with Punchin, with the arrival of Cabaye, I think he'll get plenty of chances. If they play 2 up top, he's got Connor Wickham, who will flick balls on for him and complement him. So I think Bamford is at a big price. He can score a lot of goals. The one that I think could crash the party is Benteke. If he does take penalties, which he may well do for Liverpool, I think he could be the one who's going a bit on the radar, 22 big price. But I couldn't look anywhere else bar Rooney, because you want somebody who takes penalties, who plays through the middle. He does. Rooney for me.
Just to pick on something you were saying there, where are Palace going to finish? Could they be a bet from what you're saying there, aside to finish in the top half even?
Yeah, but I gave him to finish in the top half. I think Pardew's done ever so well. They couldn't get him out the door quick enough in Newcastle, and they probably wouldn't mind having him back now. And he's done a terrific job there. Following some people who's been successful there, people said, why does he go from Newcastle to Palace? I think a lot of people know now, and I think to bring a player of Kabai's quality in, who was wanted by a lot of clubs all over Europe, he didn't have the best of times in Paris. To bring him back to England, I think is a terrific signing for them. And if they keep on, people talk who's got the best transfer window. I think they brought very good players in. Bamford, Cabaye, Wickham, I'm not too sure, but I think he can do a job, because since he left Ipswich, he hasn't really lived up to expectations. But if they hang on to these three players behind the centre forward, I think they've done very well in the transfer window, and are close to having had the best transfer window, because I think these three guys, Palace, I always looked at them as being a bit of a team that grinds results out and scores of set pieces, which they obviously did with Holloway when he was there. But they're actually good to watch. I watched them at Anfield second last day of the season. It was like watching Barcelona. Bruce will love that, and I'll probably get an invite again for next year. Being a Palace fan,
Crystal Palace is like watching Barcelona.
They're flamboyant. They pass the ball. They've got pace to burn. They play on the counter attack. They were great to watch, and this
fans are terrific as well.
Fans are, this is worth another few points. So I've got them as a bet for top half, and I think if things go to plan, they may well do that.
Yeah, no, I'm with Palace as well. I think they'll do well. I think they've, Cabaye, what a fantastic signing. I mean, they've got pace. You can't beat that pace they've got in the wide positions, and they're a threat to anybody on any given day. They can give any team a real problem. It's not a place that anybody will enjoy going. They can turn any of the top teams over. Chelsea, I don't care who it is, there'll be a difficult place to go. And away from home, when they play on the break with that pace, like they did last year, they went to Everton, made chances, scored goals. Tottenham, they went there, and I think they gave them all kinds of problems. Really difficult afternoon. I think they're a team that, top 10, I can see Palace.
A few more markets on the Premier League. Mark, this would be unfair for you, Harry. I think the Premier League manager to leave. Rodgers is the favourite, which I imagine you don't think is going to happen, did he? Flores at 6 is Advocat 9s. Ranieri, from what you're all saying, could be a man to come under pressure pretty quickly.
Yeah, and Ranieri's CV in terms of clubs he's managed, he's managed some of the biggest teams in sort of Europe, Valencia, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, he's managed Roma in Italy as well, and he's won one Italian Cup and one Spanish Cup, and I just think that he's somebody in this sort of social media era. I think he's somebody that people will quickly make fun of. Because his English.
They did when he took the job.
They did, and his English isn't the best, and you can sort of he'll appear on Sky before a game or after a game, and if he can't express himself correctly, I think that people will start to quickly take the mick, and he had the Tinker Man, didn't he, at Chelsea? I think subsequently it's become the loser, the nickname that Mourinho gave him, and I think he's definitely one to consider in this market, because Leicester, I think, will be quick if they start poorly to realise they've made a mistake there. Another one at a much bigger price, and he's not fancied by sort of many in this market, but I thought Roberto Martinez. This is not somebody I'm having a go at his managerial ability necessarily, but I think there's a lot of expectation at Everton, and that they really failed to live up to that last season with their bottom half finish, and the fans really turned on Martinez, and I'm not sure that was portrayed as much in the media, actually being local to it on Merseyside. They really did. They didn't like his football. It was very slow. It was quite dull. Lukaku was isolated up front often, and they've got a terrible start. Their first 10 matches, they've got 7 really difficult matches. They play all of the big boys early on. I could see the pressure turning on him quite quickly.
What do you think, James, on this market and any other business as far as the Premier League is concerned? Best bet for the Premier League?
Yeah, just following on from Martinez at Everton, I think Everton are quite a big price to finish in the bottom half again, actually. About 11 to 4 to do it. You know, we talked about kind of power and dynamic players coming into the league, and Crystal Palace particularly. You just don't really see that in Everton's squad at all. Mark's mentioned they've got a tough start, and they were kind of tailed off early on last season. I think they had the worst.
They also could have a tough couple of weeks, couldn't they? When you look at Stones, and there are others that teams seem to have their eye on as well. It could be a difficult few weeks. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, they'll be under pressure, you know, off the field as well. And so I like Everton to finish in the bottom half, and then you're also looking at Palace top half and Stoke top half, who are odds against, I think, are a fantastic bet, really. I mean, you know, the way Mark Hughes has changed the culture there, you know, there's no fluke about them having consecutive top half finishes. I think they obviously hammered Liverpool on the final day of last season, beat Arsenal at home. They did the double over Everton and Tottenham, and won at Man City as well. I think if they can just become a bit more ruthless against the weaker teams in the division, then you know, they could be really pushing for kind of even without the big six.
Of all that you've mentioned, Diddy, what's the best bet in the Premier League this season?
The best bet to Man United to finish above City.
Wow. Harry?
I think Man United to finish above City is a good bet. I'll be honest, it's the first day in my whole life that I haven't read the Racing Post. I was teed off very early this morning.
Too busy losing at golf.
It's in my car. I buy it every single day. There's never a day I don't have.
This is the one day.
And this is the most important. I keep this all year. This will be in my house all year. Make no mistake. Be beside the bed. I don't care if the robbers get in. They can take anything, but don't take this Racing Post. It's just... But the best bet, my best bets are not in the Premier. My best bets are all lower down this year. I'll save them.
Save that, Harry. Over to you, Mark, for the best bet in the Premier League.
I think the best bet in the Premier League is Rooney to outscore Kane. I think, you know, he obviously had a fantastic year last season, but I think he's... I wouldn't be surprised if he regressed. I'm a Spurs fan, so, you know, I loved watching Kane last season, but... Yeah, if you're asking for, you know, it's potential over pedigree, and I'd take pedigree every time.
And any other bets in? I mean, I know you're keen on Southampton in the handicap, for example.
Well, yeah, I think Southampton. There was no fluke about the way they finished last season. I thought they were, if anything, unlucky to finish seventh because they were better than Tottenham for most of the season and as good as Liverpool, I think, as well. So, the Europa League, how much that takes out of them, I'm not so sure. But Koeman seems confident he can manage it in both. It's not easy. Wouldn't amaze me if they dropped off, but I think the likes of Jay Rodriguez coming back, I can see them having another good year.
Into the Championship. That's the Premier League done. Into the Championship. Harry, a league you know about. How difficult is it to get out, let alone win the league?
Well, it's a difficult division, obviously, and it's a tight division again this year. When you look at it, there's teams like Middlesbrough and Derby that have been knocking on the door the last few years. They're going to be strong teams. You've got the teams that have gone down. Are they going to have a go and look to come back? Hull, interesting to see what happens. They've just lost a couple of players this week. I see Chester's gone and Brady has left. So it's a wide open division, you know. Middlesbrough has lost a good player today in Tomlinson. I mean, I thought they were bringing players in, but so they've weakened themselves a bit today. But it's a wide open league, but I'd have to be with Middlesbrough. I fancy Middlesbrough this year. They got well beat in the playoff final, but I think they'd be my team for this year in that division.
Middlesbrough, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Harry there. It was a vintage championship season last year. There were 3 very good teams that went up. I don't think it's quite as strong this time around. And I think Karanka knows the division a little bit better. I expect them to reinvest that money that they've got for Tomlin. I think Jordan Rhodes will eventually end up there. You know, it's
probably a good signing.
Yeah, I mean,
guaranteed 20 goals, isn't you?
And it's another 3 million they can throw at Blackburn, if you like. You know, that they've just got in today. You know, Stuart Downing was somebody that people were talking about as potentially playing for England last season. He's gone there to play the number 10 role. The defence has remained the same. That was the best in the Championship last season. So I think Middlesbrough, I would have them over Derby personally, because I'm just looking at Derby and they've spent a lot of money, and I do expect them to be up there. But Paul Clement has never managed before. Now, he could be the next Jose Mourinho, or he could be, you know, not the next Jose Mourinho. And so I was going to say the next Alan Irvine. That's probably a little bit harsh on him. But, you know, Alan Irvine was somebody that was a great coach, and then it's very difficult to then go and it's a different job. So whether he can, you know, it's okay coaching Real Madrid, then you're managing Derby. So of those two, I prefer Middlesbrough, and I fully expect Brentford to be up there. Obviously, there's a few punters behind Brentford with Matthew Benham, the professional punter that owns Brentford, and they've been employing some football odds compilers to recruit players. They really trust in what they're doing. I fully expect them to be up there.
But coaching Real Madrid is not that difficult.
Exactly.
You know, to be the head coach is difficult, but to be the coach is, you know, what are you doing what you're going to do with Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema and all these people every morning? You know, you keep them happy.
Slightly
you know,
different
when
with
people
Darren
come
Bent,
out
Harry.
and
Is it
think
more
they're-
man management
Man,
than it is
absolutely,
technical
1,000,000%.
coaching?
Yeah, you go and watch them train. If you think you're going to go and see anything special, you'll go there and walk away and think, well, they haven't done much. You know, they've done a bit of shooting, but they're fantastic players. They're not players that you need to sit down and organise them and work with the back four and work with. I'm sure, you know, they keep changing managers, but Paul Clement has been a good foil, you know, for Ancelotti. Now he's on his own. He's got a big task on his hands. Can he manage? We don't know. Please, I hope he can. He's a great lad, and I'm sure, you know. But he's suddenly, everybody loves you when you're the coach. Everybody loves, the players love you. You go out, he's fantastic. As soon as you become the manager, you'll find a completely different way of life. And, you know, when you put that team sheet up on a Friday, or you pick that team Thursday morning, do some shadow, or whatever you're going to do, and there's 4 or 5 not playing, that's when you find how difficult it is. And people, you know, he's got a big job on his hands at Derby. Tough job following Steve McLaren as well.
Yeah, fascinating to see how he gets on. James, who wins the championship?
I'm on the Borough bandwagon as well. I just think their defensive record last season in a division that is so tough. To concede 37 goals in 46 games is fantastic, and you know I don't think there's any chance of them kind of having a kind of hangover after just missing out on first automatic promotion and then in the playoff final. I mean, you know, even if they do, Derby had a far more spectacular fall from grace last season. You know, if they get Jordan Rhodes in as well, that really will give them a cutting edge. And they've lost Bamford and they've lost Tomlin today, but yeah, Stuart Downing should be a fantastic player at that level. So yeah, I think Borough are the team to beat.
Diddy, you going to make it a full house on Borough?
No, purely down to the fact that Bamford is gone. Even if Rhodes were to go there, he's got to, you know, show that he can score the same number of goals he did at Blackburn. He's a big loss. Yes, they kept a lot of clean sheets last year, but I think Shay Given was in goal for a lot of these games when he was up there on loan. For that reason, I would leave him alone. I think Derby as well, poor favourites, as Harry just said, is a new manager. You don't know. And they're both teams, they were short, very short odds, both of them, to win the league last year. And they managed to get out the first 2 positions and then obviously losing the playoffs. And then Middlesbrough was comprehensively outplayed by Norwich in the final. I like Wolves. Wolves was level on points with Ipswich and Brentford. Kenny Jackett's done a terrific job. They've been knocking on the door. And with a few additions, I think Wolves at a price this year can go really well.
Where are QPR going to finish, Harry?
I think they'll make the playoffs. You know, they've lost. Looks like Fur's gone today and Corker, but they've made a few signings, and I think they'll sneak into the 6, you know, and make the playoffs. But having looked at it there, you know, I'm with Middlesbrough, but I certainly think Wolves are going to be a threat as well.
What price they're 20s, around that sort of mark?
Who's that?
Wolves.
Wolves, 18. I mean, they had a good season last year. Kenny's done a good job, and I think they will be close. Brentford, I mean, I see them. I can't see really how Brentford are a shorter price than Wolves. And this season, I mean, Brentford have lost a good manager. You know, it's going to be a big change. Pritchard last year did great for Brentford on loan. I can't see Brentford doing as well this year. They did fantastic last year, but I don't think they can repeat that this year.
I think as far as Brentford go, they're probably the most interesting team in the betting industry because they're using ratings that professional football gamblers use to analyse their own team, opposition teams, and the players they're bringing in. So I think that possibly the odds compilers that use their own ratings there think that Matthew Benham knows what he's doing, and so they've been very respectful. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the room that are very interested to see how Brentford go, because if Brentford do well, I think that will bring football betting even more into the mainstream.
It'll be the end of the Football Manager as well, won't it?
It will, yeah, it will.
We won't, yeah. In fact, it could be the end of footballers. We should just play on a computer. I think, you know, we can send our best computer man to play their man. I think that would be the game. I can't see, you know, I mean, what a job he did last year, the manager at Brentford. Incredible to take them where he did, and then to get the sack was just, I found it amazing, you know.
I think the people there believe that the environment that they create makes it possible for not anybody to manage them, because the guy they brought in did very well in Holland, but I think they feel that it's not as important as what other aspects of what they're doing. So we'll have to wait and see.
I'd like to not to make the top 6 this year, I know that. You know, I really, if anybody wants to bet, they can have that with me.
We will watch that one with interest for sure. On to League One. Sheffield United, James, the favourites. 11-2 for me, 5-1 looks very attractive. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've been kind of hotly tipped for a few seasons now, and with the budget they have, they really should be competing. I actually quite like Wigan, second favourites at 7-1. Signed a couple of really good strikers at this level, Will Grigg and Craig Davis as well. They seemed to kind of accept their fate in the Championship pretty early last season. So, you know, I wouldn't be too worried about the tame way they got relegated. But I think they are equipped to bounce straight back.
Mark?
If Sheffield United don't win League One, Christmas 2016 is cancelled. There's no summer holidays and the kids are having beans on toast for several months. I think Sheffield United...
You've been here with Sheffield United before, surely.
I think this is the first time I fancied them. I have to say, I've always found reasons to try to oppose them because they have been pretty short in the betting. But Adkins has 3 times got promoted from this division before. You know, twice with Scunthorpe, 1 with Southampton. I think the players he's bringing in, I think he's tapped into sort of what Sheffield United should do at this level, and that's just go away to the bottom half teams and just destroy them. You know, they've got big support, turn that into a home game. And I think Nigel Clough, the way he did it was very slowly, the way he wanted to build the team. And, you know, there isn't that much patience in football anymore. So I think you need to be attacking. They brought in Billy Sharp, he'll definitely score goals at League One level. And I think Che Adams as well is a 19-year-old with absolutely massive potential, and Nigel Clough held him back a little bit last year. I think that Adkins is going to fully release him, and I'm struggling to see too many dangers. I respect Wigan, and outside of that, I can't see anybody.
Who's going in the ACCA, in your ACCA with League One, Harry?
Sheffield United. I've stuck Sheffield United in, and you know, I think they've got to eventually. In the cup last year they were excellent. You know, and even with Tottenham in over the 2 legs, they turned into fantastic performances. They've got the players. The manager, as you say, has got promotions before. I'd have to be with Sheffield. The top 2. I mean, nothing clever, but I'm sure Wigan will be a lot. You know, they've got every chance. I mean, 2 years ago, Wigan's come out the Premier, nearly got in back up the first year. We beat them the playoffs at QPR. And suddenly they find themselves in Division 1 this year. It's just been an amazing fall from grace for Wigan. But they're going to be bang there. But for me, my money will go on Sheffield United.
Right, James, League 2. I gave you the big build-up. What should we do?
It's a great betting heat this year, actually. I mean, Portsmouth is 4-1 favourites. They've flopped as favourites the last 2 seasons. They've got Paul Cook in as manager, who won the league with Chesterfield, then led Chesterfield to the League One playoffs, which was a terrific effort. So they're clearly not messing around this season. I just think the each-way value maybe with Oxford, who finished last season really strongly, only lost 4 of their last 20 games. Again, solid at the back and just needed a bit more cutting edge. I think they'll have that this season. They brought in Kemar Roof from West Brom, who was very successful on loan last season, Ryan Taylor from Portsmouth, and they've kept hold of Danny Hilton. So there are goals in the team, and Michael Appleton sounds very bullish that they can go close.
What do you think, Harry?
I'm strong. For me, there are 3 runners. I fancy Portsmouth. I think Luton will be bang there as well with John
Let's go with Portsmouth. Why Portsmouth first up?
Well, I think the managers come in, and most importantly, I think the crowd, they'll get 15,000, 16,000 people every week. I think that Paul Cook has done it before at this level. And I think they've made a few signings. I think they look strong. And I think they're worthy favourites. John Steele at Luton. For me, there's not a better manager in the lower divisions. Still has done incredible. Where over the years, for the last 20-odd years, wherever he's been, going back to the years of Maidstone and Dartford and clubs that he's managed, bringing Dagenham and Redbridge into the league. and I think they'll be bang there this year. And I think they've just signed Mikel Smith from Brighton, who works his socks off up front. He can be a real handful at that level. So I think they'll be right there. And I think Oxford at 10-1 are, again, they're good each way. But I think there's 3 runners. In fact, I'll bet all 3 of them today. So each way, first, second and third. I might have a tri-cast.
Is he right to do that, Mark?
I certainly, Luton are the ones, if they win, will really hurt me, because at the start of when betting first opened, they were around 14-1, and it looked a big price, and I left it, and then as I continued to lead the price, they signed one player, it was 12-1, then it was 10-1, then it was 8-1, and a good judge once said to me that if you didn't go to the wedding, don't go to the funeral. And so if I've missed the big prices, I'm not taking the bottom odds. One I'd throw in a nice price would be Cambridge, who had that bumper trip to Manchester United last season. And of course, that's given them a much bigger budget from which to attack this season. Most of their signings have come from League One. Legg and Roberts, the 2 centre-halves, very, very strong, I think, for League Two. And when Barry Corr turned down Southend, who just got promoted up to League One, to stay in League Two with Cambridge, that tells me they've got a lot of money. So I think Cambridge top 7 could be a decent play.
And just finally on League Two, James, in terms of confidence, when you're talking here, are you as confident as you've been over the last couple of seasons?
I mean, taking on Portsmouth and Luton may well prove to be a very foolish move by the end of the season, because they're both very strong teams at this level and have signed well. But yeah, I think Oxford can certainly give us a run for our money.
Okay, that's League Two. Diddy, welcome back. Champions League. The Champions League prices. Barcelona the favourites, 130. Bayern Munich 5-1. Real Madrid 11-2. English sides. Can the English sides fare better in the Champions League this season?
Well, I think they have to. I think they've been shambolic in recent years. I think 2 out of the last 3 years we didn't have a team in the last 8.
Why?
Well, because other teams beat them. And
why?
Well, City keeps getting tough groups because they can't get out of the group. They've got to beat a big side at some stage. Chelsea are the only ones, it looks, who got the nous to know how to play and know how to keep a clean sheet. I think it was a bit of a travesty to go out against 10 men with Paris last year. I think they should have gone into the next round there. Arsenal a bit naive. Hopefully they are better for it. And then if you've got United, they've got a winner. So I expect them to fare a lot better. I expect an English team in the last 4. I'd be very surprised if we haven't got a team in the last 4 this year, because with the quality being brought into the Premier League, surely it should improve the English teams and also weaken the teams where they've been bought from. So I expect an English team there. I couldn't look past the 2 Spanish teams. I'm not a big fan of Pep Guardiola in Munich. They got beat 5-0 on aggregate 2 years ago by Barcelona against Real Madrid. And last year, after 120 minutes, it was 5-1 for Barcelona against Bayern Munich. And if Barcelona wanted to score more goals in Munich, they would have done.
Why is that? Just explain why you're not a fan of that. Is that because Pep isn't as good as we think he is? Or is that because it's just not a happy marriage between him and Bayern Munich?
Well, sometimes you've got, Harry will tell you, sometimes you go to clubs and it just doesn't work out. And he won the league the last 2 years. No disrespect, but they've got by far the best team. They lost the cup final against Dortmund, the semi-final at home, when they were up against 10 men, 1-0 up, they lost that. And in the Champions League, they've been a disappointment. Yes, they did go to the semi-final, but with the squad and with the wage bill, they've got to expect that. And if you look, they had a bit of a scare against Porto last year. They had a pretty easy group, so they beat, last season, they beat, I think, Shakhtar and Porto in the knockout stages. You expect them to beat these teams. I think it'll be even tougher for them this year because Pep said he's not going to sign a new contract. I think he'll get big problems. The departure of Schweinsteiger tells me not all is well in the Munich camp. And I can't have Bayern Munich at 5-1. I don't think they are run, even though they brought in Vidal, they brought a good player in and 1 or 2 others. Barcelona, benchmark, they've been outstanding last season. Bringing players in, we need to see how it works because I don't think they can play till Christmas. The players they have signed, they are the ones to beat. History tells us nobody defends the Champions League, so I'll leave them alone. I'm a big Rafa fan. Worked with him for 2 years. He knows what it takes to win the Champions League. And I think Real Madrid will make a big push this season. If they do get De Gea, I probably tend to back them. If not, I'd probably rather go with a Spanish team or stick with Barcelona.
So you say when a manager goes to a certain club, sometimes it doesn't work. Why is it going to work? Real Madrid, Rafa Benitez?
Well, I think he's a lot calmer and a lot cooler than he was. And I met him not long ago, but probably a week before he went to Spain. I launched with him. He's very calm and relaxed about it. I think he has changed. I think the last 8-9 years have mellowed him. He's still got that desire and that bite and that grit to win and that determination to do everything. He's a workaholic. He loves football. He watches football from day till night, and I think he's a lot better. What in his early stages was his problem at times where people said he can't manage, which was always one of Harry's biggest strengths, because you need happy players, because if the players don't want to play for you, they won't perform. I think he manages this a lot better, and I think he'll be accepted and respected because he's a winner. He speaks the language, and it's very hard. We saw it with Bayern Munich a couple of years ago when Pep first started. They won the treble. It's very hard to keep that intensity up because regardless what you do, you're disappointed. You're going back on what you've done last season. So I think it'll be very tough for Barcelona. When you win everything, sometimes you take a step back and maybe take the foot a little bit off the gas. And I think it's a terrific time to come into Madrid. Mark said before, I didn't know they won the league. I think once in the last.
I think it's once in the last 7 years.
Once in the last 7 years. So I think they've got a terrific chance to put that right. And in the Champions League, they've got the best men on board. So my bet in the Champions League would be one of the two Spanish teams to win. I can't see anybody else challenging them.
Just one more Rafa question for you. You say he's mellowed. The Rafa-Ronaldo situation, is this a media thing, or do you think it's going to be a problem?
Well, it can be a problem. It depends. The thing is, Ronaldo, he's not really a team player. He wants to score goals, but he wants to be successful. And I'm sure Rafa finds a way getting the best out of him, because end of the day, Rafa knows without Ronaldo, he ain't going to win the Champions League.
Does he suffer stars like that? Jamie Carragher, for example, looking after
Does
Jamie
he?
Carragher? Rafa.
Can he work with stars?
How does he handle stars?
Well, years ago when he was there, he handled them as the same as everybody else. He wouldn't speak to anyone. So, which I didn't have a problem with. He will speak to Ronaldo because Rafa is not daft. Whatever they say about him, he knows. I think what he knows is how to get the best out of players. And whatever your mate says, whatever your mate Kara says about him, he made Kara a better player. That's a bottom line. And maybe sometimes there was a quote of a famous Austrian coach, one of the best ever. I think he's the only manager to this day who win the European Cup with 3 teams, Ernst Happel. He won it with Feyenoord, I think, with Hamburg. And he said a manager the players don't hate is not a good manager. Obviously, we moved on now 40 years, and it's a different environment now. But Rafa knows how to get the best out of players. He will speak to Ronaldo. End of the day, they can't be happy finishing second best to Barcelona every season. So I think, they've got a right man. Will it go well? Is he a manager for Madrid? Remains to be seen. But he's a winner, and that's what he wanted, the big clubs.
Harry, the Champions League, the English sides first. How do you see them faring? Will it improve?
Well, I think, as we said earlier, I think Chelsea are really going to want to win that this year. Mourinho's going to want to add that to his CV, that he won the Champions League with Chelsea. So I think they're really going to concentrate, and they'll be going for it, But I couldn't see beyond I fancy Barcelona to win it, but I think the English teams, as Diddy said, they can't do any worse than we did last year. They've got to improve. And again, I think maybe Arsenal might. I could see them maybe making the last 4 this year. I think Arsenal will have a run.
Is Diddy right when he talks about the English side? When I said why naivety played a part, Chelsea's a side you think who should do well. The nous, I think, was the word you just used. City against Barcelona play that formation. Arsenal, look what happened to them, particularly in the home leg. And obviously we've got Manchester United this time around. Do they need to play with a bit more nous?
But they shouldn't lack nous because, they've all got renowned, world-class managers, if you like, that have been there and done it and won it all. It's not as if they're being managed. Pellegrini's, he's managed at the top level, and Wenger's won it, everything there is. You've got Mourinho. So it shouldn't be a problem. They shouldn't be lacking nous or tactical awareness or anything else. It was a big shock when Chelsea got beat at home. I thought there were certainties that night to go through. It was a major shock. But I think that we're better equipped. They'll be stronger this year. But I still can't see beyond the 2 Spanish teams. I think they're on a different level. They've got special players that can just make the difference. Messi, Ronaldo, they make the difference. They can just turn the game, and I think they're on both them teams for me. They're the two. I wouldn't want to look beyond them two to win it.
And Mark, European football, another of your specialities. Is there some value to be had here, or is it, as Harry says, going to be same old?
I certainly think that Barcelona retained the hunger that they showed last season in the second half of the campaign with Messi, Neymar and Suarez up front. You just think that over 2 legs, they'll just score so many goals, particularly away from home. They can take a tie away from you, with the away goal rule in operation. So I think Barcelona definitely deserve to be favourites. The one team we haven't spoken about is PSG, and Didi was quite dismissive of them. But I think to go to Stamford Bridge and play for so long with 10 men and be the better team was a pretty remarkable performance from them. And then they ran into Barcelona, and Barcelona beat everybody last season. But if they can avoid Barcelona, something they haven't done in the draw in each of the last 2 years, I think they've got a lot of what you need. They've got the special talent in Cavani and Ibrahimovic. I think their midfield of Verratti, Matuidi and Pastore is of the highest quality. And Di Maria, if he gets back to the Real Madrid form rather than the Manchester United form, I think that Paris Saint-Germain would probably be my ones, if you're looking a little bit further down the list.
James, Champions League, Europa League. Would we be mad to get involved in the Europa League at this stage with the English sides?
I think at this stage it is difficult because obviously wait and see which clubs come back in from the Champions League. It's just such a marathon, really. I don't know if I actually have the patience to have a Europa League bet at this stage of the year. Probably just have a bet on a dog race or something instead, just to keep myself ticking over. But looking at the Champions League, I think Mark's right with PSG. I mean, they came up against Barcelona without the spine of their team as well for various reasons, injuries and suspension. I was all over Real Madrid last season. I'll probably be on the recovery mission as well this season. I thought they had really bad luck with injuries as much as anything, particularly Luka Modric, who's such an important player for them. So I think them and Barcelona do obviously set the standard.
In the Europa League, Mark, can you dig one out from left field, or should we bet on a dog race?
I think probably the dog race is better at this stage. But if I was to have one bet at this stage in the Europa League, it would probably be Napoli. I think it's quite a weak Europa League this year. First thing I always look for in Europa League is Spanish teams, because they take it so seriously. But they've got 5 in the Champions League this time around, because Sevilla, of course, won it last year. And their sort of challenge doesn't look that strong this time around. And I think Napoli, with Higuain up front, probably the best player in the Europa League, and some real quality in behind. Carillon is somebody that was at Real Madrid at one stage. I think that Napoli, they've got a new manager, Sarri, as well, and we spoke about Eddie Howe before. Eddie Howe actually flew over to Italy to watch Sarri work, because he recognises, whether that was him or Richard Hughes, who he's very close to, who knows Italian football, he recognises that Sarri was the best coach in Italy last season by an absolute mile, even much better than Rafa, who made a number of mistakes, actually. So I think that with Sarri in charge at Napoli, that they could go really well. It's just whether they take it seriously or not.
Right, let's wrap this up from a streaming point of view with your best bets across anything. Mark, let's start with you. The best bets for the 2015-16 season, what are they?
Well, Sheffield United each way in League One. I just can't see them finishing outside the top 3.
James?
11-10, Stoke top half finish.
Diddy?
I go Rooney each way at 14s or 16, whatever it is. I can't see him finishing out the first 4.
And having backed Richard Hughes to beat you at golf, what should I...
Portsmouth, I fancy. Portsmouth and Luton. I mean, I would bet both teams 4-1, 6-1. The only danger is Oxford 10-1, but I would go with the front 2.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Harry, Diddy, James, Mark as well. If you've been watching the streaming on racingpost.com, soccerbase.com, thank you very much for watching, and good night.